Welcome into Player Profiler Primetime News. I'm your host, Mike Lindberg, and always with me, as my usual co-host, Jeremiah Retzlaff. We are back today. We're going to be tackling the latest injuries: CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Dak Prescott, Chris Olave. We got a long list of injuries that happened to some key players this week. Jeremiah is going to break down the Rams' epic win over the Seahawks. I'm going to talk about, a couple of the firings today that went down, and we're also going to cover the Bills squeak out a victory over the Dolphins. And Jeremiah, let's get this party started with our top stories, man. So the Bills are victorious, barely. Overtime win over the Miami Dolphins, 30-27. You want to run us down on that big scoring game there, Jeremiah?
Hey, Mike, good to see you. The Buffalo Bills hold off the Miami Dolphins. The Bills are now 7-2. The Dolphins fall further into a hole to 2-6. Josh Allen, 25 of 39, 235 passing yards. He spun it for 3 touchdown passes and an interception. That interception, though, should have been credited to Keon Coleman. Only 2 rushes for Josh Allen and 7 yards, so the Konami code wasn't quite there. Josh Allen gets 22.1 fantasy points and is the QB6 on the week so far. Josh Allen did this despite losing Amari Cooper just prior to the game. We all got that alert. Cooper was a surprise inactive with a wrist injury, so we'll monitor that going forward. Tua right now sits at QB16, just meh, right? Especially in a one-quarterback league. You don't like to see that. 17.5 points. Tua was accurate, 25 for 28 for 2 touchdowns. Tua did pick up a first down rushing. If you were watching and following along, it was very crafty in how he got the first down, but he came away with it healthy. All right, every time Tua rushes, it will be a panic mixed with a sigh of relief when he's okay. The problem is Tua's been hurt far too often with those concussions, so you're definitely just clenching when that happens. Devon Achane is the RB2 this week, 32.1 points, just behind Saquon Barkley. We put a poll out just before on Profiler NFL X. Choose your fighter, Devon Achane or Saquon Barkley rest of season. Achane had a rushing and a receiving touchdown, 12 rushes, 8 targets. This is excellent volume that we want to see. Achane isn't every week must start. Achane has 4 games of 23 PPR points or more. Last week, Achane was the RB2 on the week, so he repeats it again. Go back to weeks 1 and 2. Achane was RB3 and RB2, respectively. Devon Achane is capable of outlier weeks and top-tier outcomes. The inherent risk, though, is solely due to injury. Wheels up for Devon Achane. This one feels great, as we've been big advocates on this show for Devon Achane. Pivot over to Raheem Mostert. 10 carries, 56 yards. You may not like that rushing line, but opportunity share is there for future weeks of RB2 usage. But the regression has hit hard, and we talked about that for Raheem Mostert. 21 touchdowns last year. 2 so far as we enter week 10. Has been a steeper drop-off than we've expected. Jalen Wright, he mixed in for 6 carries, 18 yards. Right now, Jalen Wright will need an injury to clear more opportunity. For the running backs, Ray Davis stole some of James Cook's thunder. 2 catches, 70 yards, with a long of 63 yards for that touchdown. Great play. Davis went 4 for 20 on the ground. Davis had 17 points, and he's the RB13 on the week so far. Cook is still the main back, but it will be difficult to deny Ray Davis going forward. Last week, the argument was that Ray Davis produced in garbage time, which was correct. But this happened right in the thick of the game, a big divisional game, so expect an uptick in usage for Ray Davis. James Cook ends the day with just 11.9 fantasy points as the RB22. There'll be better days ahead for James Cook. For the Bills receivers, Khalil Shakir, 6 catches. Dalton Kincaid had 4. Matt Collins, James Cook had 5. Ray Davis, of course, had the electric 2 receptions. I talked about that interception before. Keon Coleman had a terrible drop pass that ended up as an interception against Josh Allen, and it was deep in Dolphins territory. So one catch on the day for Keon Coleman. It was just another day for growing pains for him, for the rookie. For the Dolphins, Tyreek Hill is getting back on track slowly to the tune of 4 catches and 80 yards. Only 5 targets there, so the Dolphins' passing attack isn't dangerous just yet. Jalen Waddle had an incredible 2 for -4 yard stat line with a touchdown reception. Waddle lost a ton of yardage trying to hit a home run on a desperation attempt at the last play of the game. The Dolphins get a juicy matchup versus the Rams in LA. So for fantasy, that's what we really do care about. Fire up your Miami Dolphins, and the Bills get the Colts' soft defense on the road. Maybe it's a trap game, but right now, that's just a juicy matchup both for the Dolphins and for the Bills heading into Week 10. Mike, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nail of the head there. I think that both these teams are looking at a good finish here. I don't know what's going to happen with the Dolphins here moving forward. I mean, they're in a position now where they're 2-7, and they're in the running for the first overall pick now. So a lot could be changing in the next 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how some of this stuff slides down. So yeah, I'm with you there. It'd be interesting to see. But Devon Achane is red hot right now, and he's a guy that never would have thought with his profile that he would be able to withstand the amount of work he's getting, but he's doing it, and he's doing it at a high percentage here. So wheels up for him. Let's break down some of these injury news here, folks, because there was some big name injuries that happened this weekend, and A.J. Brown was one of them. Video analysis indicates not a severe injury, so looks like he could be back in the lineup this weekend against the Dallas Cowboys, who are going to be without potentially 2 of their star guys here. CeeDee Lamb with an AC sprain. He's been taking some big hits lately, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better for him without Dak Prescott, who potentially could, see himself on the IR depending on what the Cowboys decide to do with him. So CeeDee Lamb looks like he should be playing this week, but you never know if he could be in or out of the lineup with that. So Jeremiah, what's your original outtake on the Cowboys here?
Well, you would really like CeeDee Lamb to come back, but we know that Dak Prescott is not going to be involved. There's some rumor that Dak Prescott, the Cowboys are not going to rule out the IR. This is a bad scene. If CeeDee Lamb is not getting a 35-40% share of the targets, we are very disappointed. And then, of course, you have the health factor for CeeDee Lamb. Then, of course, what's the motivation to get back? The Dallas Cowboys are in some disarray. We'll speak a little bit later to the New Orleans Saints and maybe the motivation as well that's going on in Chicago. So not quite there yet, but I think we're getting close. But you're in despair if you have Dak in your Superflex leagues. And then, of course, you want CeeDee Lamb to return value for 1. It's very tough to be the wide receiver 1 overall when you don't have Dak Prescott. So that definitely is a hit. Now, Mike, what can you tell us, speaking of the Saints and, of course, the NFC South? We had Chris Olave and Drake London, for various reasons, have to leave their respective game on Sunday. What do you make of Chris Olave and Drake London?
Well, it's a scary thing with Chris Olave because it sounds like he's suffered his 5th concussion in not so many, in a short period of time here. So, potentially his career could be in danger. You never know, but this is something that we're going to have to monitor his practice report. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be playing this week based off of, that hit and how many concussions he's had recently. Just a sad story, really. I mean, that ball was put in a spot that never should have gone in the first place, right in the middle, and it was a high throw. He never stood a chance, but yeah, unfortunate. Hopefully we see him back this year, but hopefully we see him back and healthy. Drake London, on the other hand, indicated hip pointer injury. These are ones that they normally could play through. Depending, it's more of a pain tolerance thing here. So I'm anticipating Drake London to end up playing this week, but we'll have to keep an eye on that moving forward. But Darnell Mooney's emerged again and looking like the number one receiver in that offense, especially if Drake London does take some time off here. Keon Coleman, you mentioned that already, left the game. Looked like a wrist injury here, so we're going to have to see and monitor the reports as well. A late inactive on Sunday was Brian Robinson Jr., and his limited participation in practice suggests he was nearly ready to return. So I'm looking for him to come back in week 10. Christian McCaffrey looks like his practice window was opened up today. So look for him to get back on the field. And you never know, he might be in the lineup in week 10. So looking good for McCaffrey owners that held on. If you're in a position where you're still in the race, this could be a good move. And similar situation headed into Kansas City, where the window is opened. The Chiefs have gone on and said that they're expecting Isaiah Pacheco back by the end of November. So that is a good sign for fantasy gamers looking for some relief in the running back rooms. DK Metcalf, he missed his second consecutive game, and JSN ended up going off in huge fashion. So look for, DK to hopefully be back after the week 10 bye that the Seahawks get this week. So some much needed rest for DK and the group there. Now, Caleb Williams, he looks like he suffered some sort of ankle injury. Looks like, that's something that they could probably tape up because it's a mild one, and he should suit up for week 10. T. Higgins, limited information on the injury and the severity of it so far, but this is a Thursday night game against the Ravens. So I'm thinking that they might have been a little bit cautious with T this week, and we're saving him for the big game this week, a must win against the Ravens. So I'm looking for T. Higgins to play this week. Amari Cooper was another limited practice participation all week, and looks like he should be set to return to a Bills team that definitely is playing really good football, but could use their addition here. And then Jonathan Brooks is our last one before we get into some other news. And it looks like he may be back, and a small sample size would be nice to see what he can do in week 10. So looking for Jonathan Brooks to get into the game action here headed into the week. Now, that list of injuries was decently lengthy, and Podfather has something to say about the injury finder that we have here.
Hey, you're in your fantasy draft and someone says, hey, that guy's injury prone, I don't want him. And you're like, I don't know, I don't think you can predict injuries. Well, guess what? Now you can! Injury proneness is real! At Player Profiler, we have the data on these players, and it's all in the Injury Finder app. Their injury track record back through time, exactly where they were injured, how severe it is. We look at the BMI data, and we crunch it all together, and we give you probabilities that a player will miss multiple games this NFL season, as well as the complete database of NFL injuries and the ability to compare two players and look at their injury track record. The Injury Finder is powerful, and it's only $5. If it's worth it to have that peace of mind when you're drafting, go get it.
Yeah, we are going to go get it there, Jeremiah, and we already have it in our arsenal, and it's helped us out a lot this year, actually. So keep in mind that injury tracker does do some good things for your lineup. Now, Jeremiah, another situation here that's evolving is this Rams team is gaining some momentum here. They had a pretty good, thrilling victory in overtime against division rivals, Seahawks. Tell us all about it.
So now in the NFC West, just to set the scene, the Cardinals are 5-4. The Rams eke out a victory to go 4-4. They're tied with the 49ers. And then the Seahawks have dropped now to last place, 4-5. You had mentioned a little bit of a crumb about DK Metcalf being hurt and a little tease towards JSN. We'll get to JSN. There was a little bit floated out there. Granted, a lot of things are just speculation at this time. But this Tuesday, tomorrow at 4 p.m., there's a very big deadline. It's the NFL trade deadline. So we're really looking at the possibility, if the Seahawks are sellers, how divergently this could help JSN catapult further and ascend, or is it just smoke and that DK Metcalf will end up coming back for week 11 as you had spoken to? I don't see DK Metcalf getting traded, but it's a nice thought to have in the back of your mind. Moving parts happen a lot more frequently now that the NFL trade deadline has shifted further back. So the big story in this one, JSN, Jackson Smith and Jacoba, erupts for 37 PPR points, 7 of 13, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. JSN could not be guarded and refused to lose. This was the breakout game we've all been hoping for. JSN only had 1 touchdown on the season up to this point. Yardage and touchdown equity have been an issue, and JSN carried both in a big way yesterday. JSN is the wide receiver 1 on the week so far. The connection between JSN, Geno Smith was clear. No DK Metcalf for a second week in a row, but also there was no Noah Fant. So the signal for JSN was there, and if a good fantasy performance didn't follow yesterday, that was about to be the nail in the coffin for JSN. So instead, we got an elite performance. It's amazing how one game can change, and I know you might speak to that a little bit about the New York Jets a little bit later. There's a tease. Geno, 21 of 34, 363 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 INTs. Geno's 22 points. Actually have him as a QB5 on the week. If you had the Smith JSN stack, you did well this week. Tyler Lockett found the end zone, 3 for 63 effort. If you plugged and played Tyler Lockett, you're certainly happy. But don't expect week over week consistency. This game featured 2 high-profile running backs, Mike. Kyren Williams, RB26, way down on the board this week. You got to scroll down to see him. Kyren Williams' touchdown streak got snapped. 22 carries, 69 yards, a catch for 26 yards. It was not a good day by Kyren Williams standards, but no doubt about it, you're going back to Kyren Williams every single week. Panic level is 0, and that's coming from somebody, for me, I have a lot of Blake Cornbag, so full faith there in Kyren Williams. Kenneth Walker, nothing special, 13.7 PPR points as the RB19 on the week. 3 catches, 24 yards. Walker has been a PPR machine this year, and it is surprising that Walker had less than 5 targets in this game. So Walker and Kyren are still must-starts going forward. They're still top 5 plays. It just didn't happen this week. For the Rams receiving game, there was plenty to be happy and frustrated about. After all week dealing with whether or not Puka Nacua would play, Puka gets ejected from the game, and Nacua sat in your fantasy lineups with a 1 for 4 receiving line. Talk about pain. Cooper Kupp, though, 11 for 104 yards on 14 targets. So it's safe to say Cooper Kupp is back. Of course, it aided that Puka Nacua wasn't there as well. The Rams are such an elite fantasy producing team, despite their real NFL struggles. It doesn't matter. They could be way down in the standings, and they would still be putting out good fantasy value as well. So speaking of gold mines, Demarcus Robinson hauled in the game-winning touchdown catch in overtime. If you have the chance to view it, go and watch it. It's a beautiful throw. Matthew Stafford lobbed it up, full faith in Demarcus Robinson. 6 catches, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, 27 points. Have Demarcus Robinson as the wide receiver 4 on the week. So Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 9 on the week with 21 points. So again, Matthew Stafford feeding families with 2 wide receivers inside the top 10 this week. And if I were to tell you prior to the week, hey, you get 2 Rams receivers inside the top 10, you would have said Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. The predictability or unpredictability of the NFL strikes again, and it was Demarcus Robinson. Hopefully you had Demarcus Robinson in DFS. If you had him in your lineup, send him to us. We'd love to see it. Now the speculation abounds for the Seahawks as they're rumored to be sellers after the loss to the Rams. So again, keep an eye on that trade deadline. JSN had a blow-up week. If DK were to get traded, it would be wheels up for JSN. The NFL moves fast. Imagine us talking last week about a 37-point JSN game just a week ago. Mike, what do you think of that?
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself, but absolutely, I think JSN's game is something that was bound to happen. It was a breakout waiting to come, and hopefully this is more of that, right? I mean, he emerged as a deep threat, and I don't think it's going to be that prolific when DK gets back, but still a great outing, and the potential was there, and we definitely needed to see that as fantasy gamers. So good on JSN. wish it would have happened 2 weeks ago, because then I would have had him just right in my lineup, set it and forget it type of scenario. But I had him in a bunch of lineups, so it ended up going pretty good for me there. So yeah, JSN to the moon here. Now a couple big name coaches no longer in the mix here. The New Orleans Saints have parted ways with head coach Dennis Allen after a dismal 7-game losing streak capped by a narrow 23-22 defeat over the Carolina Panthers. So this was a really bad situation, just getting worse after a pretty good start from the Saints. They went 2-0 to start the season and were electric to start the year, but obviously injuries happened, and Allen's tenure as the Saints head coach was marked by disappointment. It was a 18-25 record over the 2 seasons at the helm. His inability to translate early season promise into sustained success, especially after beginning the season the way they did, breaking the fantasy football game, 2 weeks into the season here. But now it's a little bit more of a reality. Fantasy managers, with the departure of Allen, may usher in fresh offensive approach that could benefit guys like Derek Carr, Chris Olave, if he does come back healthy, and obviously Alvin Kamara is going to be a set it and forget it automatic if he can stay healthy for the rest of the season here. So just some news there regarding the Saints, and not looking good for them in the future here. So hopefully they could take this as a rebuilding situation and get some draft capital here in this draft, and maybe pick a quarterback that they could, plug and play here. The firing of Luke Getsy as the Raiders offensive coordinator marks a significant shakeup for the team, struggling with a dismal 2-7 record following a humiliating 41-24 loss to the Bengals. Head coach AP Antonio Pierce felt compelled to take the drastic action. I mean, their offense wasn't hitting on cylinders that they should be. They had Gardner Minshew in there. Now they're moving towards it looks like a quarterback change. You never know. But looking like this situation in general is not looking good for the Raiders, and this rebuild is in necessity for a quarterback here. And what are your thoughts on the Raiders here? It's not looking good there.
Well, you can't play in purgatory and be successful in the NFL. You have to be all the way bad or all the way good, a lot like we try to apply our dynasty leagues. And the beauty is, yesterday we get just some garbage time. I think it was 22 seconds left. Brock Bowers scores a touchdown. Less than a minute, the most garbage time touchdown. It's just a very tough scene for the Las Vegas Raiders. So you got to be all the way bad in order to get good, to get one of the prime time NFL quarterbacks. You can't squeak your way trying to just have these mid-tier, at best, quarterbacks lead the way. And then for the New Orleans Saints, you can only rack up so much credit card debt. The way they've been robbing Peter to pay Paul, eventually you just have to pay the piper, restart, and have a clean slate. And I believe in the Saints' ability to acquire talent, to bring in good players, good evaluators, but they just have to burn it down and start it back over again. You actually have to have that faith that you can do it again. So trying to hold on is almost like a fear tactic that, let's just keep pushing it out to see if we can hang on to it, when really the party's over. And especially in New Orleans, right? You hate to say that in New Orleans, that the party's over, or in Vegas, right? 2 party cities that, look, the party's over. You got to burn it down and start it back over. Get a couple good nights sleep, rest, and then party next weekend, metaphorically, as you go into the future, and get a reset for both of these teams. Now, Mike, we're talking about bullish. We're talking about bearish. We got things we like, things we don't like. Let's lead in on what we're bullish and bearish on.
0-1. M.O. Come on.
Very nice. Very topical to what you were segueing into from the last unit that we had, Mike, is the fact that we're bullish, we're bearish. We flip every week. I'm going to be bearish this week. Speaking of the Saints, Derek Carr and the Saints offense. Credit to Bill Barnwell with the following tweet. The Saints outgained the Panthers by 150 yards, ran for more than 150 yards than the Panthers, and won the turnover battle. Over the last 20 years, teams had gone 275-0 with that formula. Now that number is 275-1. So credit again to Bill Barnwell with that tweet. After being declared the paper champs after 2 weeks, the Saints have come back down to earth. The good so far this year was week 1, where Derek Carr was QB6. Week 2, Derek Carr, QB3. Now for the bad, the 4 other games, including this week, Derek Carr has been QB17 or worse. Derek Carr is delivering hospital balls to his wide receivers. Chris Olave gets a concussion on a hospital ball, which Tom Brady has talked about plenty. Tom Brady talks repeatedly about not laying your wide receivers hanging out to dry. This was Exhibit A. The problem for Derek Carr, that's a problem for him. Michael Thomas took to Twitter, railed against Derek Carr. Inside of this, private beef becoming public is something hopefully that Carr and Thomas can resolve. But clearly there's some kind of underlying tension coming to the surface. This offense has lost Rashid Shaheed. Carr sustained his multi-week injury. That did throw off some momentum. The Saints have lost 7 games in a row. Head coach Dennis Allen has now been fired. Dennis Allen has publicly criticized his players in mundane, calmer times, such as during training camp. So now things are even worse as the Saints share last place with the Panthers. So for the life comes at you fast moment, the Saints just lost 23-22 to the same Panthers team that they walloped in week 1, 47-10. Funny enough, Alvin Kamara, RB2 on the season, RB3 on the week. But other than that, this Saints offense and team as a collective is going in the wrong direction. The trade deadline is tomorrow. We could see some players get dealt, and Dennis Allen has already been fired. If we were to go into next week and Dennis Allen hadn't been fired, I strongly suspect that the team would have given up and gotten that close. So maybe we'll see with an interim head coach, a dead cat bounce for the New Orleans Saints offense. But right now, things are looking real grim. That's my bearish sentiment. Mike, can you give us something bullish, something positive to look at?
I guess I could give you something a little bit more positivity here. And after your bearish segment last week, I think it was last week, we talked about the Jets, and back again. We're back again here. We're going to talk bullish, and they looked pretty good this week. And Garrett Wilson has emerged as a top target, currently ranking as the wide receiver 3 right now in a standout performance against the Texans. He caught 9 for 90 and 2 touchdowns, which is a significant turnaround after a challenging stretch for the team. With 10 targets in that game, Wilson is proving that he is not just a talented player, but a focal point in the Jets' passing attack, receiving similar attention to star players like Devontae Adams, who also had 11 targets. This duo is poised to create a dynamic offensive threat as the season progresses, and it's going in that fashion right now. Before diving into overall team performance, let's highlight Breece Hall, who is also a crucial to the Jets offensive system. Hall has shown flashes of brilliance, demonstrated his big play ability and explosive runs. His ability to stretch the field not only opens up the run game, but also delivers pressure off the passing game as well. So, Breece Hall is a cornerstone to this offense, but the story here, folks, Aaron Rodgers coming in and, struggling a little bit, but now with Garrett Wilson coming in and taking some pressure off of Devontae Adams and opening things up here, things are looking good. And the recent win against the Texans showcased the potential of the entire Jets offense. looking ahead, the Jets have a favorable schedule that could work in the favor. They face defenses that have shown vulnerability against the pass. Given the potential and the absence of Lazard due to the injury, Wilson and Adams will likely see an uptick in targets, further solidifying their role in primary weapons here. So if Breece Hall continues to produce at a high level, the Jets can leverage and balance their attack, making them a formidable fantasy option moving forward. So I'm liking what I see here. And if the momentum is what I see, it's looking pretty good here, folks. So if you're enjoying the show, don't miss out on the exclusive content that we provide here on Player Profiler on the YouTube channel at Player Profiler News, but also on X at Profiler_NFL. You'll always get the newest and the latest in breaking news. Now, Jeremiah, let's get into the Coach's Corner. Let's hear about it.
All right, Mike, thanks for leading in there. We've got the Coach's Corner. I'm going to take the Bucs side. Of course, Mike, Mr. Chief, he's going to take the Chiefs. So Super Bowl champs, you love to see it. Let's look into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, a big question many have is how the Chiefs can be 7-0 and not light up the scoreboard, right? And Mike will have some of that for you as well. A huge part of that, though, is the Chiefs' defense is sneakily very good. The Chiefs are a weekly top 10 option on defense for your fantasy teams. The Chiefs give up an average of 295 yards a week, which ranks 5th. And the Chiefs, and that's 5th best, that's not a negative, have allowed just 13 touchdowns. So over 7 games played, remember the Chiefs already had a bye, that is 1.85 touchdowns allowed per game by the Chiefs defense. So Baker Mayfield has a very tough test on the road at Arrowhead, 9-point underdogs for good reason. 45.5 over under should give credence to more clock being run on both sides of the ball. Baker is QB2 on the season, so he's easily in your lineups. Second in passing yards with 2,189. Second in pass attempts, 284. First in passing touchdowns with 21. That is, of course, heading into this week. Baker is second in danger plays with 18 and third in interceptable passes with 14. Baker Mayfield has 9 interceptions on the season, with 7 of those interceptions coming in the last 3 weeks. So the knock on Baker is that he can backslide into risky play, especially without his top weapons. This is something to keep an eye on, as in the last 3 weeks, despite the high interception totals, Baker has been QB2, 2, and QB7 the last 3 weeks. So the volume has sustained despite some of those flaws coming out. Baker has 1 week where he was the QB27. The other 7 games, Baker hasn't finished below quarterback 7. Let's go into who's been the benefactor of no Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans. Cade Otton. Cade Otton, the de facto number 1 target until Mike Evans returns. Cade Otton is our weekly tight end in our rankings this week. Was he tight end 7 ranked? Could you have predicted that Cade Otton would be the tight end 6 heading into the season up to this point? For all the elite tight end talk, Cade Otton is providing mass payoff from his late round ADP. Otton is 3rd in tight end targets with 51, 1st in snap share with 92%, 2nd in routes run with 261. Last year, we would have yawned at a routes run stat for Cade Otton because it would have just been cardio, right? But this year, it has been fruitful for Cade Otton. Cade Otton, 2nd in red zone targets with 10. This is at the tight end position. 6th in deep targets with 3. 5th in receptions with 36. Let's pivot over to Rachaad White, Bucky Irving. Both White and Irving got Fantasy Gamers 15 points last week as the RB 17 and 18 on the week. White and Irving are providing excellent output as RB2s on your squad. Based on the investment at ADP, Bucky Irving is paying off more than Rachaad White, but placed with the predicament right now of filling your RB2 spot, both White and Irving are here and now who you want to plug into your lineups. Bucky Irving has been dealing with a toe injury, but it isn't keeping him off the field. I expect a lot more to run through primarily Cade Otton, but that ground game, since the receivers are all hurt. So White and Irving will be featured tonight. Jalen McMillan, dealing with that hamstring injury, has been declared out. This is not good. It's a very tough scene. You've got Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, who did nothing last week to distinguish themselves for anything that would get you excited for fantasy football. So expect the Bucs to attack through the ground with their running back committee and funnel more targets to Cade Otton. Of course, I led off with the Chiefs defense. That'll be the key of what I'm watching tonight is Baker Mayfield versus this excellent Chiefs defense, especially with the pressure here at Arrowhead. Mike, what do you got for us on the Chiefs?
Well, I've got a good game plan, I think, for the Chiefs, and I think they're prepared to face the Bucs on Monday night. All eyes will be on quarterback Patrick Mahomes. He enters this matchup with the best possible scenario against the Bucs defense that ranks 32nd in fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. Currently sitting at QB8 in the rankings. Mahomes is coming off one of his better games, and despite a rough season, averaging just 14 points per game and 4-point passing touchdown formats, the favorable matchup and the addition of DeAndre Hopkins could help him bounce back in a big way. Running back Kareem Hunt is another key player to watch this week, having stepped up as the Chiefs lead back. He's been on a tear, recording at least 20 carries and a touchdown in each of the last 3 games. With Pacheco still sidelined, Hunt will face the Buccaneers defense that ranks 25th in fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs. Having logged back-to-back full practices, Hunt is officially off the injury report and positioned to exploit this matchup with Kansas City as nearly 9-point favorites. Expect Hunt to play a crucial role in controlling the game clock, making him a strong RB2 candidate for fantasy rosters. Newly acquired receiver DeAndre Hopkins adds another layer of intrigue. Despite playing only 32% of snaps in his debut against the Raiders, he's set for a larger role against the Bucs, ranked 28th ranked defense against wide receivers. This uncertainty around the target share could limit his immediate impact, but his potential as a key piece in the offense is undeniable. Rookie receiver Xavier Worthy is also emerging as a noteworthy option following a bye week. He has seen an uptick of target volume, catching 7 passes for 56 yards and a touchdown over the last 2 games. With the Buccaneers secondary struggling, Worthy could capitalize on this opportunity, and we cannot forget about Travis Kelce, another critical component to the Chiefs offense. After posting his best game of the season, 10 catches for 90 yards and his touchdown against the Raiders, he is positioned for success against the Buccaneers defense. So looking for another strong performance for Kelce, but the Chiefs face the Bucs. Factors such as injuries and weather conditions could heavily influence the game's outcome. With significant injuries to the Buccaneers' top receivers, they may struggle to keep pace, especially if the weather slows things down and the offensive rhythm. The Chiefs, however, are poised to take advantage of the situation with offensive explosion. The Chiefs' combination of potential, and this could be the night that Mahomes does unleash, but it looks pretty windy right now, and some rain is in the forecast a little bit here, folks. So it could be a little bit of a sloppier game, but we'll have to see how this unfolds.
That's a really good takeaway, Mike. And it's going to be a tough game for the Buccaneers. It's one of those games where, okay, money line, Chiefs, they likely take it, of course, extend the pressure of being undefeated 7-0 to go 8-0. And then, of course, with the Buccaneers, I think they could cover the spread, keep it close, but there just seems to be too many holes and too much pressure on the Buccaneers tonight. I think the Kansas City Chiefs come away with it. It's very interesting. The point we're at in the season, the way teams are fighting in their divisions, where you have the Bengals who are 4-5, looking up at the Ravens and the Steelers. They've got a lot that they're fighting for. The AFC North, they're fighting big time. NFC West with the Rams and Seahawks battle. You have the Rams, Cardinals, 49ers all battling, but the Seahawks are only one game out as well. How you need to think about that with real NFL, with your fantasy teams up to this point, heading into week 10, you just have to keep battling. If you look at the NFL standings, there are some dog water records that look bad, but there's teams that are still in contention. So you out there with your records where you're just at 500 or you're a game below 500, disregard it. Look at where sixth place is in your playoffs. If it's a 10 team and it's 4 teams, look at where fourth place is. Make that final push because the playoffs are just around the corner. Mike, any last bit of advice for us?
No, man. It's week 9, headed into week 10. We're about to end this week. A lot of fantasy points were scored this week. Things kind of, become more normal now. We got a couple of big games from big name players, and I'm looking for more of that as the weeks head on here in the stretch of the NFL season here. So always a pleasure hanging out with you, Jeremiah. I'll let you send our viewers home.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more. Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel,